So in the last video I'd made these three kind of primitive objects, and I thought just be worth playing around with positioning things and just getting familiar with the space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little guy out of this with a head. The sphere is going to be his head, capsule is going to be his body, and we're going to have a couple of arms on it. And by doing that we'll just get a bit more familiar with moving ourselves around and this hierarchy over here and how we look at things. So let's do it. Head needs to go on top of the body. Now, if I just kind of move this around, where's it gone? I obviously clicked the wrong thing. You get, I can kind of move it to a point, and it seems to be maybe in the right place. But then, if I just move around, you can see actually I did it completely wrong. It wasn't in the right place. So it's worth looking at how the coordinate system works. The capsule is the top level thing, and it's been given a position of 1.32.7. 0.5-ish. Now the cylinder, because it's a sphere, its coordinates are given relative to the capsule. So although the capsule isn't in the center of the thing, if I put center of the terrain, if I put this sphere, should be looking at the sphere, not a cylinder. There we go. If I put the sphere and I move it to 0 on the X and 0 on the Y, you can see it is now directly on top of the capsule, so as his head. So it's not in the 0, 0, 0 of the entire world, but it's just 0, 0, not 0, 0, 1.65, 0 relative to that capsule. So that relative coordinate thing is quite useful to think about. So that's one thing positioned correctly. I can move it up and down a touch maybe. I'm thinking 1.8 maybe. Just move it down. Yep, that looks good. These are his arms, and I'm going to do kind of the same idea. I'm going to position, because it's again a child of the capsule, so I can move it relative to that. And it's saying it's just down a little bit from the center, which is fine. I'll move the Z to 0, so it's alongside. I'll move the X to 1, so it's long up a bit. Move that to 0 maybe 0.2. I just want it to kind of look like an arm, you know. That's not a great arm, it'll do. I might just scale that capsule up a touch as well. Now let's just see what happens if I scale the capsule. The whole thing scales, so you have to be really mindful of that. So I won't scale the capsule just now. This cylinder, I am going to right click and duplicate it. So I've got a second one which is directly in the same place as the first one, but because I've got it selected, I can change its X coordinate to say maybe -1. And now I have the thing that I want. Let's just talk naming briefly as well. I've got capsule, cylinder, sphere, cylinder. When you get a lot of objects in a scene, it can be really tiresome if they're all named things like this. So I'm actually going to have to rename this as Bob. Bob's a good name, isn't it? He's my character. And I'm going to call this one, is that left or right? Depends where perspective, isn't it? I think it's his left arm, even though it's on the right of him, it would be his left if we're looking at him in the face. And this one is going to be head. I should call it Bob head, really. Bob head. Cool. And I should call this Bob right arm as well if I was going to be consistent. Consistency is actually really important when you're doing large projects. It gets a bit out of hand otherwise. So Bob has got a left arm, a right arm, and a head. He hasn't got any legs. I'm not going to bother with legs. It would produce much of a muchness. And he's good. I could move him around as a whole thing. But I'm a bit bored with the colour. I'm a bit bored with him just being white. So I'm going to do one other thing in this video, which is to look at materials. And that will get us down into this window down here. Because a material is just how you change the sort of cover. You know, picture it as like a cloth. So I'm going to do a coloured material, which is going to make him not just white. So, right, down here, this is my assets hierarchy. And at the moment, I haven't really got any assets. I've got a main scene and I've got 2 terrains. Why have I got 2 terrains? Must have been that I made one and then deleted it, but it still exists as a terrain that I could drag into the scene. So I'm going to kind of worry about that later, I think. But one thing I can do is right down here now, I can right click in the space and I can create. And it's I can create a bit more than I can in that other scene. I can still create, for example, the 3D objects, or can I? I thought I could. Oh, I'm going to look at that later. I can create a material. So I'm going to create a new material which is going to be called Bob Color. Maybe. Making this up a bit, as you can tell. And Bob Color, I can change. Open a different window. There we go. I can change. I can make him, say, a bit bluish or reddish or whatever. That's going to be Bob's color right there. Perfect. And I can also change. You can see how it's down in this bottom right window down here as I tweak things like its metallicness and its smoothness. You can see the effects that we're getting. I'm going to make Bob a bit of a billiard ball, I think. And yeah, so now I can drag the Bob color onto Bob. I'm going to try dragging it onto the whole of Bob to begin with. And I'll see that, of course, because the capsule is his body. Interesting. So if I'm going to make him all the same color, I need to do things like that. And I could have more different colors for his arms and things like that. I'm quite liking the look of Bob here. So that is now in my assets, which is a good thing. So I'm going to do some more stuff in the next video.